Hey guys, my name's Rob Lopicola, transformation specialist. I'm a behavioral health coach and I specialize in sex addiction recovery. And if you're here, you're probably struggling with sex addiction and you're looking for a way out. And today we're going to talk about the thinking processes of a sex addict. Are you thinking about and obsessing about acting out sexually? I often say that we're not responsible for our first thought, but we are responsible with what we do with that thought. That is so imperative when it comes to the struggling sex addict looking for a way out of their addiction into a life of sexual sobriety. If this is you and you can relate to this and this is something that you want more information on, please subscribe to my channel, hit the subscribe below, and also hit that like button. And the more likes I get, the more subscribers I get, since this channel is relatively new, I'll be able to get out there more to help more people like you who are struggling with sex addiction. I was one of the worst cases of sex addiction, according to my recovery coach. I was one of the worst cases of sex addiction, according to my recovery coach and teacher. And my sex addiction just brought me down the rabbit hole of total destruction. I went from a prominent career as an NBC weatherman and success and fitness modeling and success financially. My life just seemed so awesome, but I was struggling with inferiority. I was struggling with alcohol addiction, sex addiction, and methamphetamine addiction. I was in the chemsex scene for a while, and I went down the road of ultimately going to prison for 5 years after losing everything, homeless, living on the streets, and then getting arrested and going to prison. That's where my core addiction, sex addiction, and its other addictions as alcoholism and methamphetamine were part of my repertoire of addiction. And today I am sober nearly 12 years. Yes, there is hope for you, believe me. From where I was with my sex addiction, and if I can have a life of sobriety today for nearly 12 years this July, you can too. And what I had to come to learn from my coach, from my teacher, was about thinking. What are you thinking about? It's been said that you are what you think about all day long. And do you think about sex all day or a majority of the day? Do you get really caught up in those sexual thoughts? Do you get deeply involved in fantasizing about sex with someone or everyone you see throughout the day? Do you tend to objectify men or women and visualize yourself in your head having sex with them just because they look good? Do you run home and watch pornography to try to find the person that looks like the person you objectified all afternoon? Do you find that this is a pattern in your life? And sex addiction has so many different components to it, whether you're having affairs or you go to parks and cruise, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of variables with sex addiction. But what I want to focus on today is your thinking, how you're thinking when it comes to your sex addiction. So interestingly, if you're like me, and most sex addicts have so much in common when it comes to the thinking processes, once you think about acting out sexually or have a sexual thought, the immediate response is to act out sexually. Whether you go hook up with someone, go on Grindr, or go on a dating app immediately looking for sex, going home and watching pornography or watching porn on your cell phone, going to work, on work break into the bathroom and watching porn. It's as if you respond or react quickly and almost casually from a sexual thought to acting out sexually. Can you relate to that? There's no intermediate. There's nothing happens in between the thought and then acting out. So what we have to do is we have to learn to change the pathway from the thought of sex to acting out sexually. There are strategies and techniques that you can learn, apply, practice, and master in time that will help you from a first initial thought that's sexual to not reacting and responding to that first thought in a sexually destructive way. And there are a few steps you can take now and begin to practice, and it's going to take you time, and there'll be trial and error, and there'll be some setbacks, but this is a method that you want to start practicing as you transition from a life that's sex addicted to a life of sexual sobriety where you have healthy sexual expression. I just want to point out here that sexual sobriety doesn't mean no sex. Sexual sobriety means that you will now have a healthy sexual expression in your life, and you have control of the choices you make sexually, and your sexual activity does not involve shame, guilt, isolation, and secrets that make you self-loathe and feel hopeless. It's about healthy sexual expression where you feel good about your sexual activity with your partner or whatever activity you're doing. You have a sense of wholeness and fullness when it comes to you thriving as a healthy individual. So my goal for you is to express yourself sexually in a very healthy way. And that's something for another discussion. But today, I wanted to talk about that first thought. So what you can do is you can actually step back from your thought. When you have an initial thought that's sexual, that you now have months or years or even decades habitually reacted to acting out sexually, you can have a thought, step back from that thought, and simply observe that you're having a sexual thought. Does that make sense? Observe it. Observe it from a distance. What I want you to do is start learning and practicing stepping back from your thoughts. When you have a thought, you don't have to react to that thought in a sexually destructive way. You can go from a sexual thought to observing the sexual thought. Simply step back and observe, I'm having a sexual thought. Then you can acknowledge, you don't have to react to the sexual thought. Does that make sense? That's a little self-empowerment. And this is a strategy I want you to start practicing. You go from the thought to observing you're having a thought, and then acknowledging you don't have to react to that thought. Now, whether you react or not at this point, it's up to you. But this is you're changing the pathway from the thought of sex to acting out. You're starting to change how the pathway works. And that's what I want you to do cognitively, in your brain. I want you to change the process of thinking when you have a thought. I have a thought that's sexual. I observe that I have the thought that's sexual, and then I acknowledge I don't have to react to that thought. Piece of cake. You can do that and then still act out, but you're just now beginning to practice changing the pathway. So now what you can do next is you can practice not doing anything sexual. Do nothing sexual as a reaction along this new pathway that you're practicing and developing cognitively. Observe, acknowledge you don't have to do anything about it, and then practice doing nothing about it. Because now you want to develop a whole new behavior that is more productive, positive, self-nourishing, self-nurturing. You want to start, instead of acting out sexually from a thought, you want to start doing behaviors that make you a better version of you. And that's another technique that kind of comes into play right here. Thought, observe, acknowledge you don't have to react to it, and then practice not reacting to it. Now, next, do something positive for yourself. Hey, listen, it could be watching a Netflix movie if that's what you like at this particular time. Go take a jog, go out in the garden. Force yourself to do it. Do you understand? Because naturally, you have a habit of going and acting out sexually, whatever that is for you. Going on Grindr, going cruising, going to the sex club, going and watching porn, whatever that is for you. You have a habit of that. And what you're starting to do is practicing changing the habit by changing the pathway once you have the first thought. And this will work miraculously for you in time, because this is not about perfection. As you transition to a life of healthy sexual expression, you're not going to do this perfectly. And I want you to get rid of that illusion. I'm never going to do that again. How many times have you said that to yourself to no avail? You go back and do it again. So don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself. You're going to continue disappointing yourself, and that leads to hopelessness. But you want to start practicing a new way of doing things. What you're going to realize in time, as you practice this will become more natural for you. And you will not always react to the sexual thought by acting out. You have a sexual thought, you develop a new habit from a sexual thought to something positive and constructive for yourself. And in time, you won't even be acting out sexually. This is just one strategy. There's so many. This is a great cognitive strategy for you to transition your life from one that's just out of control and you're feeling hopeless to a life where you can learn to have healthy sexual expression. And that's ultimately what you want, a life of healthy sexual expression. I have a free ebook for you, 5 Phases of Recovery and Transformation from Sex Addiction. Please hit the link below, download the free ebook, and either one, I have a 10-step free strategy session, 30 minutes. It's 10 steps to sexual sobriety, or how I like to word healthy sexual expression. This strategy session is going to teach you 10 steps from a life that's out of control to a life where you are expressing yourself in a much more healthy way. And if you like this video, once again, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, help me out so I can get to help more people like you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you watched it till here at the end. And I post a new video every week or two on Tuesdays, so stick around. I look forward to seeing you again in the next week or two. Take care.